Under a beautiful sky, a horrible monster chased two adventurers, but even after activating skills like Wind Step, Nimblefoot, and Green Walker to increase running speed, the monster still followed them. Malakika became very tired and asked Orntal to slow down. Orntal, a level 10 elf ranger, shouted that the monster was right behind them, urging Malakika to keep running without looking back. His status was listed as terrified, understandably high since he feared ending up in the monster's belly. Malakika shouted, asking Orntal to use his ranger skills to escape, but Orntal replied that he no longer had any available. Suddenly, Orntal noticed an update. He had acquired a new skill, Coward's Flight. This ability, activated by his inability to confront danger, would allow him to gain a second wind while running away from enemies, as long as he doesn't look back. It was exactly this kind of blessing that Orntal was hoping for. Without looking back, he told Malakika to hold on tight and started running. The speed boost he received was impressive. Orntal's main concern now was to warn the village of the imminent threat. Upon reaching the village gate, he shouted to raise the alarm, declaring that the humans had returned. His warning caused great terror throughout the village, and even the elders heard his screams, which were loud enough to wake the dead. If their reports were true, they desperately needed Riyad's help. But Riyad points out that from the way the boy described the human, it seemed like he was just a young man with no immediate threat. However, the elder counters, noting that they have witnessed how quickly humans can level up. Even a young human can be dangerous. Everyone was very aware of the war that humans started, known as the War of the Six Nations, which broke out because of a simple border conflict. Their insatiable thirst for levels knew no bounds, and they wanted to avoid a repeat of that tragedy. If it weren't for the united front of elves, Maroks, harpies, dwarves, Gelans, and dragons, the humans would have taken over all of Elatra. Even with this alliance, they were barely able to hold them off. The more humans fought, the faster their levels increased, an obsession that drove them insane. Those who were afflicted were nearly impossible to subdue until the humans doomed themselves with their ultimate act of revenge, the Cataclysm. Since then, they hadn't seen a human until now, so they needed Ryad, whose level is 48 and is also known as the Flash in the shadows. Currently, his status is melancholy. Keira and Mina are on patrol, leaving the village vulnerable, so they need Riyad to investigate and take necessary action before the human advances further. However, Riyad is uneasy about this. After everything he has endured and all the losses they have suffered, he doubts whether he still has the strength to continue. The old man reassures him, saying that everyone still feels the pain of their story, and forgetting is not an option. But Riyad is the only elite ranger the village has. Despite his reluctance, upon hearing these words, Riyad understands the gravity of the situation and decides to follow the elder's wishes. We then see several elves hiding silently in a bush, watching the human. Riyad uses an ability called Identify, which reveals that this human's level is 4 and his status is 2, melancholy. His loneliness is moderate and his desire to level up is light for now, but he is very hungry. Riyad prepares an arrow and guarantees it will be painless. He does not want the human to suffer excessively. With one shot, he aims to end this quickly. Furthermore, Riyad prays that the gods who watch over humans will welcome him into their gentle embrace and that he will never again darken the branches of Exaten. However, the arrow misses and the human quickly dodges. Riyad realizes that despite the human's low level, he is incredibly fast. Then, they fire several arrows towards the human, who dodges each one with ease. Only one arrow hits him in the leg, causing enough pain to stop him. Riyad moves in for a closer attack and a skirmish ensues. The human begs Riyad to at least listen to him, if he can understand. Riyad then orders his rangers to stand down, but before any further conversation can take place, a huge bear attacks them. It was a level 42 forest lord, an ancient creature that has occupied the top of the food chain for many years. Your status is infected. Riyad attacks the bear, but his weapon gets stuck. This gives the bear a chance to focus its attention on Riyad. It roars loudly as it charges towards you. When it looked like Riyad would be devoured, the human appears from behind and knocks the bear down with a quick sword strike. Once the bear is defeated, the human begins to level up, jumping from level 5 to level 8. Riyad uses Identify again and finds that the level of human progression has now become moderate. Riyad had not seen such rapid progression in a long time and had even forgotten how alarming it was. The human then confronts Riyad, stating that he tried to kill him. The human reiterates that he did nothing to provoke Riyad, but Riyad still tried to kill him, just like everything else in this godforsaken forest. He gained 4 levels by defeating the bear, and now wonders how many he can gain by defeating Riyad. A week earlier, this human, Rob, was living a normal life, talking to his friend Jason about the previous night's party. Jason said it was epic and he should have gone. Rob had been Jason's best friend since kindergarten. However, their normal lives changed abruptly when a dark entity appeared right inside the school. As everyone started running, the entity grabbed his best friend Jason, who screamed for help, hoping Rob would save him. Rob ran up to him, and even though he was never the heroic type, tried to protect his friend. But suddenly, chains tied his hands, and although he managed to protect Jason, Rob ended up being sucked into the entity. He thought he was dead, but soon woke up. Even though he didn't want to go towards the light, he began to explore his surroundings. Now I believed I wasn't dead, which was great, but I had no idea where I was. It felt like a whole new world, certainly a far cry from campus. First, he decided he needed to find a way to get back to Jason. Then he noticed that his clothes were very different from his usual ones, and that he even had a sword strapped to his back. Its status window showed your HP, stamina, MP, and level, as if you were in an advanced type of virtual reality game. He decided he needed to stay calm about all this. The last thing he needed was to panic. But then, suddenly, he had a great reason to panic. A crazed wolf started approaching. Rob drew his sword, and even though he had no idea how to use it, he fumbled a little, but still managed to defeat the enemy. However, he was hit by severe bleeding, which made it clear that this was all very real, and not a simple, virtual reality scenario. As his HP continued to drop, Rob began to deal with the realization that this could be a nightmare. He longed to wake up in his warm bed, but the constant loss of HP indicated that he was actually in danger of dying. In a desperate attempt to stop the bleeding, he tied a cloth over the wound, but the bleeding did not stop. He had never felt such intense pain before, and tried to remember something useful from his high school biology class. His mind wandered, remembering how he usually used humor to deal with stress. He thought of Jason's mother, a nurse who used to talk about dissociation techniques like elevating to ease to manage pain, a strategy he momentarily appreciated, although it was ineffective as his HP continued to drop. Driven by determination, Rob declared that he would not let his life end in such a bizarre and sudden way. He refused to accept that an unknown entity could simply transport him to this hostile world and let him be devoured by wolves. With new determination, he stood up, vowing to not only survive, but also confront whoever was responsible for his situation. He shouted his outrage, promising to find this antagonist and force him to open a portal that would take him back home. At that moment, a message appeared indicating that he had defeated the crazed wolf, which took him to level 2. This victory increased his attributes and granted him a rare ability, activated in near-death situations, showing his unwavering will to survive. Now, whenever his HP fell below 25%, his vitality would double, and the effectiveness of all defense and vitality-enhancing skills would increase. He also acquired the passive abilities of tough skin and regeneration. In the real world, Rob was known for his love of video games and chaos, often choosing to play games over partying with friends. Although his recent interaction with Jason was just a figment of his imagination, Rob couldn't wait to see his friend again and wanted to get home by any means possible. However, his friend surprisingly informs him that even if Rob returns, they won't be able to meet, as he is supposedly dead. This revelation leaves Rob in shock. His friend then talks about various scenarios that all lead to the same outcome, and Rob realizes he can't be sure of anything since he's not there to see it for himself. Overwhelmed, Rob yells for his friend to stop talking because he realizes this is all just in his head. Then Jason says that Rob didn't save him, and that he doesn't even want to be his friend anymore. They met when they were little, but now Jason has grown up and doesn't need him anymore. Laughing bitterly, Jason starts to run away and then transforms in the entity that once again grabs Rob. Suddenly, he wakes up from this nightmare, feeling physically much better and relieved that he didn't end up like the wolf, who is now nothing more than a puddle of goo. He can't stop looking at it, tormented by the fact that he was responsible for the wolf's death, and that doesn't make him feel good at all. He wonders if his day can still get worse, and then notices that his HP is still decreasing, but also regenerating. It is clear that things can always get worse, but at least this regeneration, however slow, means he can still survive for now. Your recent level increase too granted him several new abilities, which seems like a cosmic joke, as if whoever controls this place is an expert in references from your world. Now, Rob wonders if he'll have to almost die every time he wants to gain more abilities, but he is prepared to do whatever is necessary to survive in this fantastic hell. His skills are enough to keep him alive, but he still wonders if reaching 0 HP would mean the definitive end. What would that be like? It would be like a game over screen in a video game, but at the same time, he has the feeling that whoever put it here didn't include a reset button. The place is probably full of sick, humped beasts, and all he wants is to go home. If this requires strength, so he's willing to do whatever it takes. Now Rob regrets leaving the scouts before learning making making fire. There's nothing useful in his pockets, no lighters. But then, while rummaging through his pockets, he finds something. It's just a note, but when you read it, it's clear that someone is making fun of him. Elsewhere in Ixaden, we see elven warriors fighting giant ants, and there are too many ants. There's no way just 2 of them can clear this entire dungeon, so they decide to escape. They thought this would be a dungeon for beginners, but it's actually quite dangerous. It is also the first to appear so close to the village since the purification. The mentor still wonders why Keira thought they could handle it. She explains that they were both meant to be warriors and frontline patrollers. Of course, they were made for this kind of thing. The problem now is their level. If they had leveled up faster, they might have been able to handle it. Unfortunately, there is only one creature that can speed up the leveling process, and Keira says that these creatures are far worse than anything in this dungeon. They are truly grateful that these creatures no longer live in these lands. We cut back to Rob, who is reading the good luck note, which only makes him angrier. Your first mission is to find food and water. The second is to gain more experience to increase your level stats. The higher it goes, the easier it becomes to survive. He admits he doesn't want to do any of this, but he has to survive. It's all about survival. Then he finds another challenge and does everything to survive because he needs more experience. Because of a stone, he trips and falls. But even so, he is happy because he found a beautiful lake. You will never need to be thirsty again. He even tries to call through the portal, hoping it will appear from somewhere and take him back home, perhaps under a rock. But no, all he finds is a monster. He thinks the MP in his stats must mean magic, so he tries to throw a Hadouken, but fails. It seems that for now it's just sword fighting. Then he tries to move some leaves using magic and fails again. You end up ripping them off manually. Thus, even with the water problem resolved, hunger remains unresolved, and stepping on frogs isn't helping the experience much. He is still far from leveling up. Need to find something bigger than frogs. Then you hear a sound. It's a bird, but it only flies away, and with it goes the chance of XP. So attacking frogs is all he can do for now. After defeating so many, he feels guilty, but at least he gained another passive ability, making him most proficient with edged, sword-shaped weapons. Turns out, if you've never held a sword in your life, it only takes a few practice swings to move from level 0 to level 1. However, hunger still persists. While searching for something bigger than frogs, Rob comes across something truly valuable, a holy chalice, the cutest one he's ever seen. He thinks that if he lets his sword fly pure and true, then that frantic squirrel, definitely not cute, should give him enough XP to level up. The squirrel attacks Rob, and it's actually faster than he can react. Rob manages to slap him and wins, reaching level 3. He is radiant upon reaching level 3, which grants you more passive abilities like gathering and hunting. And it's not just 1 or 2 frantic squirrels, there are many. And he even encounters one of a higher level, which represents a good challenge. After facing it, he starts running, but the squirrel is still behind him. He arrives at the edge of a cliff, and in this fantasy land, there are no guardrails. The squirrel, being quite foolish, throws himself at him, and they both end up falling. Rob manages to grab a branch to stop his fall, while the less fortunate squirrel plummets into the water below. Now Rob has 2 options. He can try to climb back up if he can get a better grip, or he can just give up. He thinks about it for a while. His parents have no idea where he is. It's been 2 days, and soon those 2 days will turn into a week, then a month. Jason will tell them what happened, but will they believe him? He wonders if he will ever see his family again. Once again, he gains a new ability, climbing and deep breathing. The climb was so difficult that even his climbing level increased, and as a reward for his quick reaction, his dexterity also increased. But all of this only makes one thing clear. This place really wants him to die. Still, it's so beautiful. Jason would love to see that one day. Rob looks forward to telling him and his family all about this wonderful place. This grants you another rare passive ability, gloom resistance. He earns it by having experienced a deep, soul-piercing sadness. With this ability, he can recover faster. But on the other hand, he doesn't want to lose that feeling. He doesn't want to get up so quickly, because that part of him is what makes him feel alive. He doesn't want to completely numb that feeling. The ability to resist melancholy is deactivated, but this only intensifies his longing for his family even more. We then see Arnold and Malakika near a beautiful waterfall. Arnold is trying to catch fish by being agile and moving like water. However, Malakika thinks maybe shooting the fish is a better idea. But Arnold doesn't think there's any need to rush, since the day is so pleasant and the forest seems peaceful. So, Malakika also decides to just lie down and relax, enjoying the place. On the other hand, we see Rob hating this place, as every monster around everyone just wants to take his life. He even needs to apologize for taking out his pent-up anger on them. With his constant battles and gaining levels, he can now face even a level 8 frantic wolf. And not even the horrible sight bothers him anymore. He's so used to it all. When the monster jumps at him, Rob uses his sword to take down one more. He wonders what kind of disease these monsters have. Could it be a fantasy version of rabies? His sword gets stuck in the wolf, so he has to fight with his bare hands. With this battle over, he finally reaches level 3, also gaining the ability to fight. It feels strange to say this, but he has to admit, this is all starting to be fun for him. He has some unused points, so he thinks about what he should do with them. After thinking a little, put 2 points into Vitality, because if you reach 30, you can unlock a new ability. His regeneration level also increased, but only by 20%. Rob expected a higher percentage. Still, he gains the quick thinking ability, which slightly improves his thinking speed. However, it consumes 3 energy points per second while it is active, something mentally exhausting if used for a long time. But Rob thinks it will be worth it, so he yells for all the wolves to come at him. But honestly, he'd rather they weren't infected this time, so maybe he could even eat them. Afterwards, he comes across the beautiful waterfall where the elves were trying to fish and relax. Finally, seeing people other than himself, Rob becomes teary-eyed and excited. It uses Identify to see who these people are, but we already know them. However, seeing a human is a frightening experience for elves. So even though Rob casually walks toward them and says hi, hoping to learn their names, the elves just run away. He asks them to stop, and he comes back, but no one stops him. Rob realizes that he won't be able to meet or talk to anyone today, but he still feels like it was good to see them, even from afar. Depression begins to set in as Rob reflects on how the first people he saw simply ran away. The next moment, as he wanders around, he hopes to find someone who doesn't run away, even if it's a talking wolf. However, no one appears before him except dead wolves. Sitting down, Rob thinks about how nice it would be to have a conversation, maybe even with the Spanish Inquisition. He screams at the RPG system to give him an ability that raises his voice. After waiting a while with no response, he decides to return to his cave, but he is still very hungry. As he moves away from the wolf, he notices other people hiding in the bushes. Suddenly, an arrow comes towards him. He dodges it easily, followed by a rain of other arrows. Rob runs even faster, wondering who is shooting. Then, one of the arrows hits his leg. It's certainly not a good situation for him. To make matters worse, he sees a warrior coming directly towards him. He manages to defend himself with his sword and counterattacks, but when he uses Identify, he is shocked to see that it is a level 48. Really scary. Still, Rob thinks he might be able to talk to him. He says that if the warrior can understand him, he would like to talk. But the next moment, he sees a giant bear coming towards him, which is certainly not good. The bear attacks, and Rob hits his head against a tree. He tries to regain his senses to think of a way to escape. Things are not looking good for Rob. Either he is beaten and then eaten by the bear, or the elf wins and executes him. The bear is so scary that it will probably haunt your nightmares. But if you manage to defeat him, you will certainly gain a lot of experience, perhaps enough to defend yourself against that level 48 if necessary. He's sure he'll raise his level, and he really needs to. Then he goes into a rage once again, takes his sword and plunges it into the bear. As expected, he rises many levels by performing a very dangerous maneuver, in which any slightest mistake would mean certain death. Even though he gains dexterity from defeating an enemy far above his level, he also gains stamina. Rob is definitely a lot more powerful, and sometimes he feels like he loves that feeling. It might be the only good thing about this place. He invests many points in his attributes, increasing his regeneration and even gaining a new ability, Life Surge. Those 20 stat points were very useful, and with Life Surge, he could quickly restore 30% of his health, but now he wants more. He thinks that elf really tried to take him down, even though Rob didn't do anything. The elf tried to attack him, like everything else in this cursed forest. If he gained 4 levels by defeating the bear, he can't help but wonder how many he would gain by defeating the elf. But before attacking, he realizes something. He's not so lost after all, and you don't want to get to that point. You can't let this world win. He still wants to continue being Rob. Then he just turns and walks away. Now, the euphoria of leveling up has passed, but the loneliness has become moderate. Still, he is in melancholy. Rob is now racked with deep guilt, wondering what's been happening to him since he almost killed that guy. You want to believe that you wouldn't have actually done it, but you're not sure. A great doubt haunts him inside. Suddenly, he sees a large hole, something new, similar to a haunted house, or rather, a haunted hole. You feel a strong instinct to turn around, but there is also the possibility that there is a portal inside. After being sucked in previously, he ended up in a dark and strange place, and this hole looks like that. He starts to come down, thinking about good things, like his mom's banana bread and Friday nights bowling with Jason. These memories are comforting, but suddenly the ladder he is using breaks, and he starts to fall. This is definitely bad. He reaches the bottom, and remarkably, survives the fall. A fall that would certainly have killed him when he was still level 0. Maybe he's starting to adapt to this place. So far, nothing has tried to eat him in there, which should be a good sign. But then, he hears hears a voice calling for Mina. It looks like someone is in danger. Like a hero, Rob runs towards the voice. There is a light ahead, a door, and also a really hurt elf, or at least what was left of him. Seeing the elf in this state reminds Rob of how he could have done something equally horrible today. He apologizes, not knowing exactly why, but it's clear from what he sees that if he had acted on his impulses, he would have deeply regretted it. No one deserves to end up like this. He wonders if there is some last rite he could perform for the elf. He keeps debating whether to bury him, cremate him, or perhaps do something different. Thinking about it, what catches his attention the most is that he can have a better conversation with this deceased elf than with any of the living ones who were determined to overthrow him. The elf lying there doesn't look very recent, so if he wasn't the one who screamed, who was it? Suddenly, Rob realizes that someone is behind him and hears a voice telling him not to move because if he does, he will lose his mind. Rob is terrified, but also curious about how they could speak English. The elf there feels sorry for Manta and thinks that this human is responsible for trying to take him down in search of revenge. Rob manages to dodge it and wonders why everyone there is abnormally strong, a question he would certainly like an answer to. Then the elf grabs his neck and demands to know what poor Manta has done to him, screaming for an immediate answer, which, if not given, will lead to his downfall. However, Rob is not amused by the irony of the situation, as it seems like she is sparing no effort to keep him alive. As the warrior begins to cry, she uses Identify on Rob, where she sees how scared he is. Rob tells him that when he arrived, Manta was already on the ground. The elf then asks the human to just leave and approaches Manta. Now Rob understands that it was she who was calling out to him and thinks that maybe he should leave now. Keira cries and thinks it's her fault. She should have paid more attention. She looked back, and in the next moment, he was gone. Keira cries, regretting who else would now give her problems for throwing herself headlong into a fight. Mina was the only person who really cared about her. She prays to Luther, hoping that somehow her prayers will be heard and that Mina will return. But of course, none of that will happen. Resigned, the elf decides to take Mina home so that her soul can rest fully. Rob asks if he can help her, but this only enrages Keira. She tells him that he's just a weak, vile, disgusting creature who can't save anyone, and that's all he is to her. Rob understands and says he already knows that, acknowledging that everyone there clearly sees him as a monster, and perhaps they are right. But still, he wants to help her take Mina home. Seeing genuine sincerity in Rob's words, Keira says okay, but also makes sure he understands that this won't make them friends. Rob understands and completely understands that she is just letting him help her. He introduces himself as Rob, and she introduces herself as Keira. With this, Rob gains a new skill, diplomacy. Now he has become more proficient in the art of negotiation, something that, with his personality, may be the skill he needs most. As they walk, Rob mentions that he doesn't remember this place being this big. Keira explains that dungeons have a tendency to change over time, or so she's heard. Rob understands that this might be her first time at one of these as well. Keira tells him that dungeons are rarely near their village, thanks to Luther. Hearing this, Rob wonders if Keira went in there just to take a look. Keira explains that she wanted to be useful to her village, as they like to remind her otherwise. This also makes her recall a memory about Mina, so she stays silent. Rob says he knows what it's like to feel like an outsider. Keira wonders if this human is trying to sympathize with her. Rob says yes, and doesn't see a problem with that, since she's the first person he's actually spoken to here. One guy ran away, and another tried to kill him. He was so lonely this week that he even started talking to a branch. Keira remembers that she also tried to take him down. That's true, but Rob also says they're over it, or at least he hopes so. Keira says he should consider this on hold until they get out of this place. Still, Rob thinks he certainly didn't realize that a dungeon would be such an intense experience. Then, he steps in some goo, and you wonder what that is. Keira wonders if he is really human. This confuses Rob, so he asks what that means. Keira tells him about how the stories her village tells about humans always talk about how humans aren't very forgiving. Keira also understands that they could never forget humanity after what they did. Rob has no idea what this means, so he asks what happened. Keira is surprised by this. She can't believe this guy doesn't know. Then Rob explains that he hasn't seen any humans except himself. Keira asks if this must mean he has no knowledge about the spoil, the cataclysm, or whatever happened on Ixod. These words are completely new to Rob. Keira tells him that Exodon is here. Rob thinks she means the dungeon, but Keira clarifies that it's the name of the entire region. Well, at least now Rob knows the name of this place. Keira finds him very strange and wonders where Rob came from. Rob tells him about a place called Earth. Keira has never heard of a city like this. Rob explains that it's not a city, it's a planet, but this revelation shocks Keira. It's not common knowledge here, and she also understands why people suddenly coming out of portals shouldn't be a normal thing around here. Rob seems to be the only lucky one who gets to experience experience this. Now Keira understands that Rob didn't grow up in Elatra, which is the name of his world. Keira realizes that Rob has no connection to the humans who once inhabited this world, which calms her a little, but now she wants to know why he came to this dungeon. Rob says it's to face his fears, but Keira understands that he may have just come here to gain experience, and Rob agrees, but he doesn't understand why Kira's tone suggests this is a bad thing. Suddenly, Keira stops, and Rob asks why they stopped. Keira asks him to show her his status sheet. This is not a request, but an order. Rob understands and shows his character sheet. He knows that these statistics might make everyone judge him as weak, but Keira finally breathes a sigh of relief because his experience level, fortunately, is still low. Rob had never noticed this before, but now he knows that these people even have a term for that addictive feeling of leveling up. He asks what will happen if this increases further. Keira says that then she will reconsider her decision not to take him down. Rob takes note of this. Suddenly, they are attacked by many ant monsters, but Keira is still focused on the conversation. She asks if Rob knows he can allocate points to categories other than vitality. Rob says he just didn't want to die. There were so many wolves everywhere, constantly attacking him, so he had to focus on that. And it wasn't just wolves, there were also poisonous fruits, and that huge bear. Suddenly, Keira realizes something and asks Rob to be quiet. She tells him not to move as a dangerous spider monster is right above him. Rob just wants someone to tell him there's nothing above him, because he feels like there's definitely something in him. Keira quickly fends off a huge spider. Rob uses Identify to find out what they are, and they discover that they are baby dungeon spiders with varying levels. Some are low, others are high. It looks like another item will soon join the list of monsters trying to defeat Rob. Rob is very scared, as he doesn't see where to run. They are everywhere. Seeing these spiders up close is even more terrifying for Rob. Keira takes the lead and says they will have to fight. Rob doesn't know if this is the right time to say this, but he hates spiders, just like Indiana Jones hates snakes. He's like that, but with spiders, so this is the worst situation he could be stuck in. Unfortunately, Keira has no idea who this Indiana Jones guy is. Rob explains that he is a character in a movie, and the movie even has a great theme song, one of his favorites. You need to watch it if you haven't already, he adds, but perhaps this isn't the most appropriate time to talk about great films. Keira apologizes for him being afraid of spiders, but even so, he'll have to draw his sword there, as she can't fight so many monsters alone. Spiders are everywhere, and although Rob is trying his best to fight his fear, so far Keira is the only one who is actively fighting back. She's already taken down about 20 spiders, but there are still hundreds more to face. She is practically unstoppable. Her Circle of Death technique is working very well so far, and she even deals damage in Mina's memory. All this chaos takes Keira to level 28, but when she looks around, that human is no longer there. The spiders took him, and so many spiders so close to him are making him lose his mind. But finally, he can fight too. In fact, he becomes a beast. Seeing him fight like that makes Keira believe the stories the elders told, but Rob just can't understand why these spiders don't run out. No matter how many he takes down, they keep coming back. And they are even poisonous. Luckily, his resistance to the poison has also increased. Keira struggles gracefully while Rob stumbles, but at least his resistance to the poison increases again. This situation is pure hell for him. They keep sticking to him, so he simply rolls across the ground. This grants him a passive ability called Creepy Crawler Crusher, which he gains because he has knocked down at least 10 valuable insects or arachnids and experienced a moment of intense aversion to them. Now he can cause 5% more total damage to bugs, arachnids, or anything else that crawls and makes him want to stand on a chair and scream. As Rob continues to fight his fear and knock down more and more spiders, he gains even more rare passive abilities, which give him 50% more damage against things that crawl and 250% more damage against spiders. He asks Keira, who also doesn't know what to say. Spiders are also crawling around Mina, so Rob immediately goes to them and teaches them a lesson for disrespecting the dead. Soon, his level reaches 10, and thanks to Life Surge, he also begins to heal himself. However, Keira points her blade at him and asks if he has overcome his bloodlust, because if not, she will have to put him out of his misery. Rob says he's not thirsty for blood, but a hot meal would certainly be nice. Now that the danger has passed, they can finally leave the dungeon. Outside, they set up a nice camp where Rob can finally eat some good fish. He could eat this every day, it's so delicious. Keira notes how it is a miracle that he survived so much poison and that his level increase is still only slight. She expected something at least moderate. Rob, while enjoying his meal, says he has no idea what this all means. He's only sure of one thing. This fish is is the best thing he's ever eaten in his life. Keira says he can consider this a token of his gratitude. She understands that there was no way she could have gotten Mina out of there without him. Rob also says, thanks for getting him out of what was certainly the worst experience of his life. Not that those words mean much as he was attacked by monster squirrels here. Keira talks about the infection. They don't know what magic is behind it, but it has spread throughout the fauna, creating various aberrations. At least now Rob understands why everyone wanted to take him down. Now he's even ready to leave this place, but Keira tells him that maybe this is the most appropriate time to tell him that everyone in her village wants him dead and buried. He already knows this, as he had already met Mr. Level 48. Keira then says that first they need to clean him up. They can't present him as a crazed drifter. As they walk, Rob asks how she met his friend. She says that Mina and she used to steal bread from the baker and were always getting into trouble, getting hit on the head for it. She didn't have the best childhood, but having Mina was the only good part of it. He protected her. Hearing all this, Rob feels sorry. Keira says the village has its problems, but it's also her home. Everything around is very quiet, so Rob thinks that maybe everyone goes to bed early in his town, but Keira says that's not the case, because not a single candle is lit. Something has to be wrong. Using Step of the Wind, Keira quickly surveys the area and finds that everyone is inside their homes. She wonders if the infection has spread throughout the village as well. She knocks on a door calling for Reiner. Reiner comes out and sees Keira, noticing her leg. Keira asks what happened to him. Reiner tells her that the healing regeneration didn't work and says he will share more details over time, but for now, it looks like she has more important news to share. He then asks where Mina is. Keira delivers the sad news that he didn't make it. She explains that a beginner dungeon has formed in the forest. They went in together to explore, but got separated, and by the time she found him, it was too late. Reiner prays that Luther will welcome Mina into his gentle embrace. Keira also prays that he finds peace in her sacred halls. Then he asks to be taken to Mina and explains along the way that they were attacked by many animals from the forest, not far from the village. The infection inside animals is becoming more aggressive with each new day. Keira understands that this explains why the village is on lockdown, and its boundaries as well. But Reiner is happy that Keira returned safely. Then Keira says she needs to warn him before they get there, because she had help getting Mina home, and it was from a human. Reiner stops suddenly and asks if she knew they were tracking a human earlier that day, someone skilled and dangerous. Keira says that without the human's help, they wouldn't have been able to perform Mina's funeral rites. Keira suggests that if Reiner tries to talk to him, he too will see that he is not a monster. Reiner is willing to talk, since Keira is so insistent, but warns that if he feels the human poses any threat to the village, he promises that his hand will release his sword. Keira understands this, but tells Reiner one more thing. Humans are not of this world. Rob, on the other hand, is really nervous because Keira brought Mr. Level 48 in person. Keira begins introductions and introduces Reiner, aka Riyadh, to Rob. Rob notes that they have met before, and even Riyadh recognizes him. Rob is surprised that Riyadh also speaks English. Riyadh explains that here they call this language common. Now, Rob understands that Riyadh must have understood everything he was saying before they separated. Riyadh confirms yes. Talking to Riyadh is like talking to a wall, according to Rob, who then reaches out and says he's glad they're meeting again on better terms. Riyadh responds with a simple no. Rob gets even more casual and says they should work together since everything in this world has been so difficult. He confesses that he is lost and scared, having almost died so many times, and that understanding this world is like solving a puzzle without clues. He opens up and asks for help, understanding that there appears to be some trouble between elves and humans, but also swears that he is not a threat. If they won't help him, he just wants to be directed to the nearest human settlement, promising that he'll be out of their way in no time. At least the way Rob talks makes it clear to Riyadh that he's not really from here. Rob, once again, says he's definitely not from here. Then Keira says that there are no more human settlements, not here or anywhere else, at least as far as she knows. Rob is the only human left, which is a pretty shocking revelation for him. Then the elves take him to a cemetery. Rob asks what happened there. Riyadh says it was a war, and the cost was never worth the victories. Humans continued to evolve while overthrowing their brethren. Each of these stones represents 1,000 dead. Rob asks if he means 1,000 dead humans. Riyadh makes it clear that he is talking about elves killed by humans. Rob just can't believe humans did this. Riyadh adds that there was no end to their violence. In the end, elves, dragons, dwarves, seas, and harpies all came together to defeat humanity. They gave it fancy names at first: the War of the Six Nations, the Allied Expedition, but when it was over, they all agreed to call it the Purge. What else could they call it? The extinction of an entire people and the the loss of more than half of those who remained, not just soldiers, but people as well. What was left was destroyed, a world in pieces. Hearing all this, Riyadh expected Rob to at least show a gasp of horror, but to Rob, none of it seems real. However, he understands that humans, in his words, are not so different. Riyadh goes on to say that they not only lost each other, but also themselves in the process. Even though they survived, they did not emerge unscathed from the first to the last moment. A decade of service, fighting until he wanted to cower in a corner and let the world take him, and all he got from it was this. Remembering this enrages Riyadh, who says Rob is the one who took his livelihood. Rob points out that he wasn't even there, but Riyadh goes on to explain how humans have rendered half of his ranger skills useless. He can't fight with 2 weapons properly with a fake hand. Keira interrupts Riyadh because she feels like enough is enough. She says she can tell the rest. Rob, surprised that there is more than that, hears Riyadh say that he will count it himself. Every crime, every child that humans have massacred. Keira once again says that that's enough, that they're done for today, and she thinks everyone needs to rest. Riyadh also says he will follow Keira's advice. The next day will be important. Rob wonders what will happen the next day. Riyadh says they will present Rob to the elders for trial, and from the story he just told, Rob can be sure they will not be kind. But Riyadh also tells Rob that he has another option. He can leave the village now and never return. He will allow humans to choose their destiny, giving them this mercy. At that moment, Rob suddenly wakes up, and for a moment he even forgets that he is trapped in a fantasy land. But he soon discovers that elves live in medieval mansions. He explores a little and finds Keira, who couldn't sleep. Rob says he can't sleep either. Keira asks him to sit down, saying she's going to make tea. She apologizes for the cramped space, explaining that this is all her junior ranger salary can afford. But Rob isn't sad about it. He easily imagines himself living there. Keira wonders if he lived like a pauper on his homeworld. Rob responds that back there, he was a college student, so he could indeed be called poor. When the tea is ready, she serves it to both of them. Keira says he's sorry for everything and can barely imagine what this ordeal has been like for him. Rob tells her not to worry, that he hasn't processed this at all yet, so it's all just going to sit there, simmering below the surface, gradually building until one day it explodes, and he has a nervous breakdown. Keira sarcastically says that sounds healthy. At least she hopes it's sarcasm, but Rob understands why she also wanted to tear him down when they first met. It's not like Keira herself came out of this unscathed. She didn't fight on the front lines, but she still lost family and friends. Mina was the only one left. They wanted to be ranger partners after she graduated. Keira is no more a fan of humans than anyone else, but meeting Rob made her realize that not every person is responsible for the sins of their species. Rob may be human, but it wasn't his war. However, Rob has a feeling that not everyone in her village will come to the same conclusion as Keira. She hoped everyone would change their minds about him once they met him, but it feels like they're climbing a cliff here. Rob points out how he's already climbed a real cliff, so a repeat shouldn't be a problem. This piques Keira's curiosity, and she asks how high the cliff was, how far he climbed, and how much his climbing ability has evolved. Rob notes how Keira really likes statistics, which makes Keira wonder if Rob doesn't like them. He responds that he is interested in them because they are what is keeping him alive there. Then Keira asks more about the cliff and how he got there. Rob explains that it fell from him, which leads Keira to begin to understand how Rob got 50 vitality with only level 10. Peter then asks if Rob has made his decision yet. Rob says yes, and the next day we see him walking around town with a hood on, like he's in Assassin's Creed or something. This gives him an active ability called stealth, allowing him to move around without being noticed by anyone or anything for once. He goes to the elders, who ask him to lower the hood. Seeing their reaction reminds Rob of Indiana Jones with his gun, because these elders are reacting as if he had done something similar. The levels of all the elders are quite high, and they are all shocked. Seeing their fear, Rob raises his hands and says that before they identify themselves, he would like to introduce himself. But the elders don't want his introduction. They are simply very disgusted to see a human and just want to know what he is doing there. They ask why Riyadh is just standing still. He may have a broken leg, but he can still take this human down. However, Riyadh says there is no need for that, as it appears the human has made his decision and is there for judgment. An elder makes it clear that their judgment is to remove the human from their presence, preferably using their own strength. Rob introduces himself as Rob. He would like to be called Rob instead of just being called the human. He also says it's a pleasure to meet them. Keira finds this interaction quite amusing. Riyadh says the elders must know that Rob is not from this world. He was transported there less than a week ago. This makes the elders silent for a moment, then they think about Rob, the human. One of them asks what his currency is called, and Rob says it's dollars. Then they ask about the strongest weapon in their world, which is a nuclear bomb. Then they ask about the cataclysm. Rob has no idea about this, but it sounds bad. Then the question of who is the highest-ranking person in the world. Rob has no idea, as his world doesn't even have levels. Then the elders talk among themselves for a while, and after that, they thank Rob for his sincerity. They agree that there appears to be some legitimacy to his claims, so for now, they decide to assume he is telling the truth. But then they ask if he knows about what's going on in their world. Rob says he knows. He knows what the humans of this world have done. Then one of the elders says that if Rob knows about all this, how could he expect them to think twice before sparing his life? Rob says he could apologize for this on behalf of all humans if it would help, but any apology would be an empty gesture, and he thinks everyone in the room already knows that. There are two reasons for this. The first is that Rob wasn't there. He can't begin to imagine the pain this caused them all, and to claim otherwise would be nothing short of an insult. The second reason is the same. He wasn't there. He is human, yes, but he is not a human who has anything to do with purification. He refuses to share the blame with those who actually participated in this. The elder sees this as a provocation, meaning they should have no business with each other. Then they ask why he appeared before them. Rob says that if he can't go back to his world, he would like nothing more than to be part of their community. The old man says he is just looking for safety from the wolves. Rob confirms this is true, but it's also the closest thing to home he knows. He sees roads and buildings and people, and he can tell there are good people there. It would be nice to make friends with them. Keira is really impressed with the way Rob is presenting himself, so Rob says all he wants is a chance. The elders give him disapproving looks, but then Rob sees a message indicating that his diplomacy level has just increased. Rob can't believe he actually did it, that he actually convinced them. The elders applaud his rousing speech, and this makes Rob happy, hoping he will finally get the chance he wants. But then, an elder says with a dark look that, regrettably, they need to inform him that they will vote to execute him. Well, that's something Rob feared. No matter how convincing Rob's arguments were, they didn't care. Rob tries to stay calm because he thinks they're probably waiting for him to fall into some human stereotype, so Rob just asks why. An old man responds that just looking at him makes him want to scream and tear the hair out of his head. Their very existence only reminds them of everything they have lost. The entire panel feels the same. Rob thinks that if they all just follow the leader, he's seriously screwed, so maybe he should just say goodbye to the world and kiss goodbye to any chance of returning home. But then, one of the wise elders says he will vote for him to stay. Rob thinks that whoever this guy is, he's now his fourth best friend. Another elder asks the reason behind this decision. The elder responds that, in fact, he had been intending to let the humans stay for some time, and Rob's words only consolidated his opinion. He believes that humans have a lot to teach about their world and seems more than willing to learn about theirs. Another elder thinks this guy has always had a fondness for humans, so maybe this should be considered treason. Another elder asks her to stop because there is another important matter to be discussed. She asks about Rob's status effects and wants him to read them out loud to them. Rob feels this has to be a trap and looks at Keira, who motions for him to continue. Rob takes a look and sees the same things as yesterday: melancholy, hope, but the most important effect for them is the level increase. When they ask about it, the look they give is really intense, almost as if Rob has insulted them in some way. From the look on Rob's face, it appears to the elders that he doesn't understand the severity of the level increase. Keira had mentioned this to Rob before, and now he understands that maybe that was why she always wanted to check her stats, because this leveling up is dangerous. The elders wait for the sage among them to explain that in this world, all living beings are motivated to increase their level. It is the nature of things. Levels equal life power, and who doesn't want power? All intelligent beings rightly enjoy leveling up, but for humans, it is an obsession. Rob understands that it must have been this feeling that he has also been longing for. The sage goes on to say that for a human, leveling up is a high that nothing else can surpass. Not food, not love, nothing. The moment a human tastes the level up nectar, he is stuck with it for the rest of his days. What is being described here sounds like something addictive. The elders also note that the fact this is listed in Rob's status effects means it has already begun. Rob remembers how crazy he really was back then when he was leveling up. It was a really good feeling, better than anything he had ever felt in his life. The elves are also freaked out by the fact that humans have the ability to level up at a faster rate, because get this, Rob was at level 1 not long ago, and now he's at level 10. Leveling up will certainly dominate. The old man asks Rob to look inside himself. He had to kill a lot of things to level up so quickly. They are sure there was hesitation at first, but now there may not be as much as before. And do you remember how he almost killed them, just from experience? He would never have even considered killing a living being on Earth. Even frogs he would never touch. Now he is certainly afraid of what he is becoming, and wants to get rid of it. But the elders say that once it appears on your character sheet, it never goes away. But in a mild state like it is now, it is certainly manageable. The more he levels up, the stronger the compulsions become. Those with a moderate level can work, but when it gets to the advanced level, things get ugly. There's a reason humans sent those affected to the north to die fighting. Rob said he would never let it get that far, but the elders remind him that all other humans thought the same, and those who lost themselves to addiction also lost the ability to choose peace. They became violent for the sole purpose of ascending to the next level. They will never be able to trust this corruption on someone's character sheet again. They cannot and will not accept someone into their village who would lose themselves in that kind of bloodlust. After hearing all these terrifying things, Rob gives them permission to kill him, but only if they see signs that he is getting lost in this. As they say, the high never goes away. So Rob is okay with that outcome and decides he's going to keep it where it is now. And if he fails, Riyadh can take him down, since Rob doesn't want to hurt anyone. Riyadh also says that he saw the human kill the Forest Lord and gain 4 levels at once, but he still maintained a moderate level. The wise elder notes that gaining so many levels at once would have pushed any other human to an advanced stage, but somehow, Riyadh notes that this one was able to suppress his urges and lower his level to mild. Other elders ask if Riyadh is supporting the human, and Riyadh says he is just presenting the facts. Rob mentally makes a note that with so much support, he will definitely have to bake a pie for Mr. Level 48. Then all the elders decide to resolve the matter with a vote. Some vote for him to live and stay, while others just want him to die, feeling like he doesn't belong there. Just one vote left. The elder notes that the village already has enough problems with the growing infection and that the human would only cause another source of instability. Then suddenly a sword comes down. It's Keira. She says she's tired of being a silent spectator to this comedy farce. She feels Rob proved he was acting in good faith and will continue to do the same. The elder points out that Keira didn't fight on the front lines and didn't see the brutality of humans up close, but Keira counters by saying that her parents certainly saw it and taught her better than that, to judge by a person's actions, not by their past. The elders stop her and warn her to be careful, but Keira says she can't just keep quiet. What are they going to do? Decrease your salary? It's already a change. Even Rob agrees with this. The elder doesn't like this, but Rob points out that what bothers him is that they pay her so little, considering she's clearly a hard worker and passionate about their community. More than anything, what bothers him is the fact that it bothers her. If she didn't care, maybe he wouldn't care either, but she does. And surprise, surprise, it appears that Rob is capable of basic empathy. If these people paid her a decent salary, she could afford a house she's proud of, even though he thinks her house is actually pretty nice. Keira stops Rob and says she doesn't want him to talk about it, but Rob keeps saying it's true. Her house is great. But then Keira points out that she means he shouldn't talk about wanting a bigger house. This makes her embarrassed. The elder notes that simple compassion and empathy are all she wanted to see, and so she welcomes Rob to her village. Upon hearing this, Keira is very happy, and Riyadh is also fine with all of this. Then, all the villagers gather for the final Mina rituals. Although they have few archers left, it has never felt this way with Mina in their ranks. His good nature was felt by everyone, as was his desire to protect. The last funeral Rob attended was his grandmother's. He's surprised they even let him in, and wishes he had something to say. Then Riyadh asks if anyone would like to say a few parting words. Someone comments that they are here very often. Rob then observes the elder who supported him. Rob quickly points out that it wasn't Keira's fault, but the elder isn't there to blame her. But he still admires Rob for being so quick to defend a friend. Then he asks if Rob knows why this village doesn't have a name. Rob says he was wondering that, and the old man explains that it is a complicated story of bureaucracy. The catastrophic event destroyed everything, including their way of life. Every person here, every hill warrior, comes from one of 5 or more different cities. Almost all of the remaining elves in this region live here now. Reaching a collective consensus on what to call their new home that everyone would share proved impossible. Everyone wanted to name it in honor of what was lost, but everyone lost different things, so this village remains nameless. They found each other, formed new families, and now they lose those too. Keira says he didn't share blood with Mina, but he was still like a brother to her. They found each other like broken pieces, and day after day, they helped each other come back together. But now that he's gone, she doesn't know what to do. Rob is really worried about Keira, but the elder says he should just let her grieve, so they take Mina to the cemetery. Seeing the concern in Rob's eyes, Keira tells him he doesn't need to ask, she's fine. Rob doesn't even want to imagine what he would feel if he were Jason. He wouldn't even be able to say goodbye. Then, he notices some marks and wonders if Mina always had them. Then, he notices something. Mina has opened her eyes. He asks the others if they are seeing this too, or if it is just one of his strange nightmares. Riyadh says he is certainly seeing this. Keira is really worried about Mina, but Rob holds her hand because that's not Mina anymore. Just look at it. It looks like there is some kind of parasite on it. Riyadh says he's a corpse eater. Never heard of one outside of a dungeon though. Then, suddenly, many crows start to appear, heading towards the village. Rob tells Riyadh he must go. They would need him there. So, Rob reassures him, saying that he doesn't need to worry, he will take care of things there. Riyadh tells Rob to make sure Keira gets home safely. Then, Mina rises up as a level 18 corpse eater, basically a zombie. Keira wonders what happened to him, but then suddenly Mina attacks her. Rob was ready to attack, but Keira stops him. However, Rob can't stop. He's sorry, but that's not Mina anymore. So Rob cuts Mina to make sure he doesn't touch Keira, but then Mina knocks Rob down, and he's sure a lot of parasites are going to touch him. Rob falls into one of the tombs. Keira tries to talk to Mina, saying it's her, Keira. She cries, hoping he will recognize her. But Mina is not interested in recognizing anyone. Her interest is in one thing. Rob comes back, as he doesn't want the evil Mina to attack Keira, but this Mina is certainly strong. So strong that he gives Mina a good beating. Then, just when it looks like Rob is finished, Mina does even stranger things, sticking out her tongue. Fortunately, Keira uses her sword at the right moment. She apologizes, but she couldn't allow any kind of language business there. Rob is happy to have received help. Keira cries and says goodbye to her old friend, hoping that he can now rest. A status message also appears confirming that the enemy has been defeated, but also confirming that the enemy was their oldest friend. On the way back, Keira thanks Rob for helping her, but Rob says that's just what friends do. Riyadh notes that all those crows aimed at a large crystal. They flew directly towards him, perhaps searching for the focus of power. However, Riyadh did not know that the infected would be able to coordinate such an attack. Then, Riyadh tells the Elder, who is also inspecting the site, that Keira and the human have returned safely. The Elder points out that the fact that the Corpse Eater has so quickly taken hold of Mina outside the village gates means that the crystal's power is weakening. Marriott notes that clearly his purification defense still holds, but the Elder questions how long it will hold. If the crystal's magic fades and they reach the focus of power, things would get really bad. Riyadh says the patrol units are exhausted. They no longer have a choice, so he decides to gather the junior rangers for training. Keira is a warrior, and Riyadh has seen the damage she can do. He also thinks they should take humans into consideration. Riyadh understands that he is now part of the village and must train him as well. He is strong, and with training, he will become even stronger. Next, we see Rob wandering around, feeling good, especially since he heard the words, "Welcome to the village." Those were the most beautiful words he had ever heard. And now, no one is throwing chairs at him anymore. But then Keira tells Rob to move. He asks why, but Keira quickly points out that things are about to get violent, as the other villagers aren't too happy. The Elder gives them a place to hide. After a while, the crowd moves away, at least for now. They will wait for another chance. Riyadh points out that the news has spread. The village knows that a human is in town. Keira is stressed as an angry mob is coming after him. They're lucky the funeral ended in such a distraction, but Rob doesn't care about it. He can handle the yelling and threats, but he's worried about Keira and tells her that if she needs to talk about Mina, he's ready. Keira simply says no. Riyadh also notes that Rob is right to be concerned. No one should say goodbye to a friend like that. Riyadh regrets that he cannot be of more help. Keira says everything is fine and then decides to leave to make sure the crowd disperses. Riyadh also leaves to accompany her and is ready to talk if Keira wants. Now, it's just the old man who seems anxious. He's not sure why. And Rob, who also wonders why the old man is looking at him like that. It looks like a bug in a petri dish. The Elder asks what Rob calls the world he is from. Rob responds, Earth. The Elder points out that this would make Rob an Earthling. Rob agrees, but the old man has more questions. Before he can ask them, Rob says he actually has some questions too if the Elder doesn't mind. The Elder says it's okay, since they haven't introduced themselves properly yet. He introduces himself as Elder Duran. They have a long night ahead, so he takes Rob to the library. The Elder understands that Rob is probably as curious about their world as he is about Rob's, so he wants Rob to consider him a resource. Even though everything is so vast and beautiful, there's a part of Rob that still wants to find a way back home. The old man admits that this is a topic beyond his knowledge. Rob's transportation here, as far as they know, is unprecedented. But then Rob asks about his friend, who was almost dragged along with him. He wants to know what the Elder thinks about this. Will he be okay? The old man says he believes his friend is doing well. It is likely that the portal closed shortly after he was taken. Rob feels like the Elder is just saying this to make him feel better, but he still hopes he's right. The Elder says he will check the ancient scrolls again. Perhaps there is something he overlooked. Meanwhile, Rob has about 10 unused attribute points and doesn't know what to do with them, since in his world, there are no levels. They just walk around without knowing their exact statistical value. The Elder understands that Rob is talking about the noble art of min-maxing. Upon hearing this term, Rob is surprised, as it is a D&D term. How do people here know about this? The Elder then asks Rob to show his character sheet. Rob wonders if this is something personal or something specific to this region, as Keira also asked about his attributes about 5 minutes after meeting him. Riyadh comes in and says, "Of course she asked." However, Keira feels a little embarrassed. The Elder asks about the crowd, to which Keira points out that Riyadh looked away. Keira then talks about how she doesn't understand the reluctance with character sheets since they can already see the levels with Identify. It is efficient to obtain knowledge this way. Then, Riyadh asks Keira why her strength is 55, especially since she said it was 50 just one level ago. Riyadh is furious, as this means that Keira has once again allocated everything to strength. But Keira says that his construction works well. However, Riyadh doesn't like how she relies so much on her danger sense, because she certainly needs more vitality. While looking at Rob's chart, the old man finds it funny how he also has a similar problem. He apologizes, worried about sounding insulting, but asks if Rob knows how to allocate points to attributes other than vitality. Rob responds that he knows, because deadly expertise was very level, but everything was in line with what he faced. So he put everything into what could keep him alive. After that, the elder says that he cannot recommend allocating anything to magic, because to become a true wizard, it is necessary to invest heavily in mind and magic from the beginning. Unfortunately, it looks like there will be no fireballs for Rob. The elder notices how Rob seems disheartened by this revelation, and wonders if magic is so coveted in their world. Rob says many people would give an arm and a leg to do magic that no one on Earth can do. This is truly surprising to hear for the elder. Rob then says that the only magic they have is pulling a coin out of someone's ear. Hearing this, the elder says, "That's incredible. He must be really rich." Then the elder says that if it were Rob, he would have put these points into perception, as it heightens his senses and his ability to perceive details, which would help him while training with the other juniors under Riyadh's supervision. This surprises Keira, and Riyadh says he will start tomorrow. Rob wonders if this means he will automatically be a ranger. Keira says no. The elder says that Rob would have to officially change his class to ranger before the crystal, and in doing so, he would gain new power and alter the course of his life. It is not a decision to be taken lightly. Rob says right now he just wants to decide what he's going to have for dinner. Then Rob asks a quick question. He sees dexterity listed there. The old man confirms that dexterity influences your speed and reflexes, but then Rob points out that increasing strength would also make you faster, because your legs would be, stronger. Riyadh and Keira explain that that's not how it works. The elder then also notes that for a constitution with so much vitality, his mental state is quite high as well. Rob says he was 19 when he got here. Riyadh comments that only a human would have such an advantage. The elder suggests that Rob must have received this distribution representing his efforts on his homeworld. This means that Rob is actually an educated man. Rob understands that this must mean that the elder is calling him intelligent, although he has never heard it that way before. Rob says he's not a genius or anything, he just had a normal education in history and math. Hearing math, the old man becomes excited, which makes Rob even more pleased, as it is just another way of calling him a genius. However, the elder then says that it would be good to have someone check his account book. He shows it to Rob, who immediately notices an error in one of the lines. The correct sum would be 60,000. This grants you a passive skill mathematics, which increases your speed in solving mathematical problems. But then, suddenly, Rob feels something again. He checks his status, and his level is still low. He wants it to stay like this forever. Keira asks if he's okay, and he just says he was worried about the ever-present threat of turning into a bloodthirsty monster. No big deal. Then Rob asks if it would be possible to take a look at their library for his own research. The elder says yes, but also mentions that all the books are written in Elvish, and unfortunately, Rob is not a hardcore Tolkien fan. The elder then notes that machine translation is a skill that can be unlocked by those who have a solid mind and are also avid readers. Rob considers himself a bookworm, which is great, because the elder now has the opportunity to give him lessons in Elvish writing, hoping that the machine translation skill will be unlocked quickly. They start, and we see Rob doing a lot of calculations, thinking it's working, but then suddenly he feels like his brain is being scrambled. Keira also points to her nose, which doesn't look very good. He suffered some brain damage. Riyadh asks Elder Duran to quickly use a healing spell. Rob thinks he's either unlocking the machine translation ability, or he's in big trouble. As the moments pass, it seems like he is really in trouble. He starts to lose consciousness, and then suddenly he acquires an ability that appears to be machine translation, but something is wrong. Things are looking really buggy.